Happy Good Friday to all those that celebrate, and hopefully the Penguins will have a good Saturday because they will play the Detroit Red Wings in Detroit Little Caesars Arena as the Penguins look to keep their season alive and also slide into a playoff spot for at least the next 7, 8, 9 hours, potentially even longer than that if the Penguins get some help from the Capitals or the Flyers on Saturday night. So for this episode, to start it, we're going to preview that game against the Red Wings, what the Penguins need to do to win it, plus look at just how they shouldn't even be in this situation right now, plus a buttload of other things. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. I have a few co-hosts back behind here for those that are watching on YouTube. Thrawn is here, also very excited that the Grand Admiral is coming back in the Ahsoka show. And I have Teddy, who is behind me. She is laying down. They've been being pretty bad downstairs, barking whoever comes by. So I decided that they will join me here. And yes, I am still rocking the Steel Panther on the prowl shirt I rocked last night. We're keeping with the good vibes here. The reason why I think they won last night was because I was wearing the Steel Panther shirt during the game. We are all in on the Steel Panther stuff. If they make the playoffs, it's going to be because I went to that concert and then bought the shirt. But again, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms. So it's Penguins Red Wings Saturday, 1:00 start time, nationally televised game on ABC. I'm double checking to make sure that ESPN has not announced who's going to broadcast this game, or the commentators, that is. Just trying to see here. Yes, okay, so they did announce it. It's going to be Bob Wischusen, who I actually like, Brian Boucher, and Leah Hextall. Brian Boucher, I don't really think his analysis is that good. I think it's kind of fallen off after he left NBC. Leah Hextall, I'm not really big on her analysis either. I think some of her TV interviews are kind of cringe. She's tried to do some play-by-play. She's just not really polished enough with that. But Bob Wischusen does a good job. So I think that'll be a fun call game. So 1:00 start time. ABC is the channel for all of you. Unless you want to listen to the radio broadcast, that is what Josh Getzoff and Phil Bork. But Penguins Red Wings in game 80 out of 82. The Red Wings were officially eliminated from playoff contention on Thursday night in a 7-6 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. Devin Levy showed he was human, but the Sabres were able to stay alive with that shootout win. All these games are massive, obviously, for the Penguins, but you cannot get swept by both the Canadians and the Red Wings, especially with your seasons on the line. Thrawn, buddy, if you are going to stay in here, okay, whatever. He's just going to be looking for toys under there. Whatever. I love when my dogs are just being crazy. But, you, with everything on the line, you cannot get swept by the Detroit Red Wings. This team, they're not as bad as the Blackhawks or the Columbus Blue Jackets, but they're still not good. Just a week and a half ago, they had lost 12 out of 15 coming into that game against the Penguins. Penguins were able to tie it not once, but twice, especially in the third period. It was 4-4. We all know what happened after that. Brian Rust takes a really stupid penalty with less than 4 minutes to go, and they don't even get a point because the special teams nuked another one of their games. And that's the weird thing about this. If the Penguins have been able to get points in games such as, the Canadians won just about a week or two ago, the game against the Senators a week or two ago, that game against Detroit, and that game against Boston. All 4 games they lost late in regulation. If they had gotten 4 points at least and gotten to overtime, and even if they lost, say that, they would be 3 points up on both teams right now. The Penguins going into those final 3 games, all the Penguins would need to do is to win one of these final 3 games, basically, and they would be in the playoffs. Yeah. They would actually, going into this game, if they had gotten just those points late in regulation against those teams, all they would need is a win tomorrow, plus a loss by either the Islanders or the Panthers, and the Penguins would be in the playoffs in game 80. Those are the lines, people. That's how razor thin. That 2:28 separated that Penguins and the Bruins from a point. 3 minutes separated the Penguins from a point in the Red Wings game. 2 minutes separated the Penguins from a point in the Senators game. The Canadians game, they jumped out to a 2-0 lead. Less than 20 minutes separated them from a point. 3 to 4 points just right there. Couldn't even grab them. And that's not to mention the fact that they could have gotten extra points there. They didn't get a point in any of those games. Say if they win all those games, that's 8 points. They're 7 points up right now. They're already in the playoffs. It's just crazy. It's just, that's how thin the lines are. And, we kept saying, after all these games, it's going to come back to bite them. It's going to come back to bite them. It is right now because they don't control their own destiny, but they will have a chance to be in a playoff spot for at least 8 to 9 hours before the games on Saturday take place at night when they go to Detroit and take on a bad Red Wings team. This team is not good. They have some talent. You look at daily faceoff, obviously David Perron, he played very well against the Penguins last time, had the hat trick. Dylan Larkin has been their best player. Dominic Kubalik is on the top line now. Pius Suter, Andrew Kopp, Lucas Raymond, Alex Chason, Joe Veleno, Adam Ernie, Jonathan Bergeron, Austin Zarsnick, and Matt Luff. Defensively, Jake Wallman and Mo Seider, Sam and Edmondson and Ben Sherratt, Oli Mata and Jordan Osterley. And then it looks like the Red Wings will have a new goalie for this one, Ville Husso. He is back healthy. Alex Nedeljkovic we backing up. At least that's how it's looking like right now. Red Wings are a little bit banged up. No Michael Rasmussen, Mark Pizik's out, Robbie Fabry's out, Philip Zadina and Marco Kasper. All those players do not look like they're going to be shooting up in this game. But what I'm really looking forward in this one, I want to see a level of desperation, urgency that the Penguins showed on Thursday. Come out firing. They did. Marc-Andre Fleury was the only reason that game was close at the end of the first period. I want to see them play with that level of urgency and with that level of desperation. Dean Evason, he even said after the game, the Minnesota Wild head coach, that they expected them to come out desperate. They did just that, and he even said they just didn't respond the right way. He liked how they played in the second and third period, but he even said it wasn't enough because the Penguins are where they are in the standings. It was kind of similar to the way the Islanders looked against the Lightning. They were the more desperate team. They came out peppering. They were able to break through in the second period. Panthers, they were obviously the more desperate team against the Senators because the Senators were really just not, they were kind of in it, but, also not really. Finally drinking some water because, I'm tired of that little stupid allergy cough that I have on my show. But again, urgency, desperation, the special teams, that is a big one for this matchup. I say this for every game basically, but especially for this one, with how that last game played out. Penguins go down 3-0. They come back thanks to their power play. Tied at 3-3. They go down 4-3, but they tie at 4-4. But then the penalty kill rears its ugly head once again. 3:48 left. Who scores? David Perron. Perron scores a minute later to make it 6-4. The game is basically over at that point. The Red Wings scored with 3 minutes left. You need the special teams to show up in this one because, last night it was almost kind of looking the way, it was going to go in some of these games that have been, close losses where the power play was not good. The penalty kill was getting its turn. It usually doesn't play well when the power play stinks, but at least the PK was able to be a bit better against Minnesota. I was actually kind of surprised, but it's the time of year where special teams matter a lot more, and the Penguins penalty kill needs to be better after the way they played against Detroit a week and a half ago. Not good enough at all. And a couple of those games, they would have just been able to get a couple of big penalty kills from their units. That is even the 2 games. Let's just say that even the 2 games against the Senators and the Red Wings, if they'd been able to kill both those penalties off, they would have gotten at least a point. They would be a point up in the standings right now. They would be in control of their own destiny going into these final 3 games. That's how slim these margins are. If you want to kill this penalty, if you want to kill that penalty, you need to see the PK at its best. I want to see the power play improve because it's been really bad for most of the season. It's crazy that they rank in the middle of the pack around the league in terms of power play percentage. It does not look like that when you watch them live, but I want to see that better. Tristan Jarry, I think he's going to get the start in this one. He should be the starter. They have to rely on him for better or worse in these final 3 games. I think he's taken some baby steps to get back to the level that we saw before he got injured in the Winter Classic and the level that he played at for most of last season. He's not there yet, I don't think, but I thought I liked the way he played against Minnesota. I thought his movement was crisp. I thought he was aggressive. His, everything about his game was a lot better. It's also challenging shooters. The 1 goal that he allowed was not his fault. From behind me, it's just killing me. But Those are the big things I'm looking for. Also, I want to see Sidney Crosby show up now. He's been a little cold as of late, not really scoring much. Like I think we're used to seeing at the end of the season. I don't know if he's a little banged up. I don't know if he's tired of carrying the team all year, along with Evgeny Malkin and Crystal Tang. But I want to see a big vintage Sid game. Actually, I'm going to predict that. I think you're going to see a great vintage Sid game here. It's past time for him to really show up for the Penguins here down the stretch. And I'm not saying that he hasn't, that he's just been terrible or anything like that. I just think the captain's been a little off, not like his normal self, I should say. But that's what I'm really looking for in this game against the Red Wings. The Penguins have no excuses. I am sorry. When you are playing three teams who are down and out, they're playing for pride, honestly playing for Connor Bedard, if you want to be even more truthful, you have to win these games. It starts on Saturday in Detroit against a Red Wings team that is not good. They've been playing bad hockey. You have to win it. It would be obviously very Penguins for them to lose this, and then for the Islanders and the Panthers to win on Saturday, which would effectively end their season because they would be 3 points back with 2 games to play. They were the only way they would get in is if they win their last 2 games, and then one of the Panthers or Islanders lose their last 2. That would be a death blow. So another must win. They need to come out being desperate and urgent, and I think we're hopefully going to see that on Saturday afternoon. Though that wraps up this first segment as we preview the matchup against the Detroit Red Wings coming up in the second segment. We'll get to a couple of injury updates. When could Marcus Pettersson and Nick Bonino be coming back? I heard a couple of things today with regards to that. Plus, just why the Penguins should really not be in this situation right now. And thanks to, I believe it was ZC. I'm trying to remember what your name is on the YouTube comments. I'm just going to go on here. Just to make sure I get it right. It was from ZC717. You brought about 20 games that they screwed up. I only had 10 off the top of my head. I'm going to give those 10 and I'll get to some of yours as well. That's all coming up in this next segment. But before we get to that, when you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. If you hate waiting, well, Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're going your own business, you have to make every dollar count. And that's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Remember, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. One more time for you all. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Okay, let's jump right into it. So, Penguins, I was talking about this in my Thursday episode, and I'll say it again here. There's just no excuses to even be in this situation right now. ZC, you are the one that said it best last night. If the team ends up missing, you can reference the below why. And he gave a whole bunch of other games, but I had these off the top of my head. The 3 Montreal games, no excuses to lose those games. That team is terrible. They only got 2 points in 3 meetings against them. They should have easily won those first 2 games. They had leads late in the third period against them. The third game, they jumped out to a 2-0 lead after they played the night before. No reason to lose those 3 games. You have the 2 games against the Red Wings so far. You should have gotten 3 out of 4 points at least in those games. You blew a 4-0 lead in the first one. That should have been an easy 2 points. Heck yeah, if they even win that game right now, they're tied with the Islanders and the Panthers. I know they don't have the tiebreakers, but that looks a little bit better right now. And then the other game against the Red Wings, that's 5 right there. 2-3 against the Islanders, that's 7-8. Remember that Islanders game just a few weeks ago? They're up 3-1 with less than 6 minutes to go. Had the Penguins won that game, they would have, I believe, gone up a couple, 2 to 3 points, I believe, on the Islanders. Nope. Islanders score 5:36 left. They then score again with a little less than a minute to go. All you need to do was hold that lead for 6 minutes because the Islanders had nothing in that game. Nothing. In the other game against the Islanders on Long Island, Penguins were up 4-2 late in the second period, lost in regulation. They're up 2-1 in the other Pittsburgh game, lost in regulation. 8 right there that they had multi-goal or 1-goal leads in late in second periods or late in third periods, and they're not able to close out. That's 8. The Sharks game, where they lost 6-4, Logan Couture had the best game of his season. That's 9. Like the Bruins game, you didn't even get a point out of that. That's 10. Obviously, the Senders game, that's 11. 11 games right there. And if they had gotten 2 points in almost all those games, or even a point in half those games, this team would be challenging for a top 3 spot in the Metropolitan Division this year. That's why it's so maddening that they are where they are right now. They have done this to themselves. This isn't just bad luck, just unlucky bounces and all that. No, they've played well for the most part, but a lot of times they've also just had really crappy defensive play coupled with really bad goaltending, and that's what sunk them. And you can put special teams in there. They should not be in this situation right now. The Penguins should easily be in a playoff spot, and it should be the Islanders and the Panthers duking it out for that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. If they don't make it, and there's a good chance that they might not make it, the Penguins only have themselves to blame. That's why, if you're a fan of this team, I'm not trying to speak for you here, but I'm just saying, if I were you, I probably wouldn't be super upset because, they only have themselves to blame. This isn't just it's a super competitive Eastern Conference. It's not. You have the top 6 teams that are obviously very good. Outside of that, though, it's a lot of middling teams. I don't think the Islanders are that good. I don't think the Panthers are that good. I don't think anyone below the Penguins are any good either. Penguins also aren't that good, obviously. But this conference is not that good. I mean, the fact that they are where they are right now just goes to show how poor this season has gone. And, ZC, you also touched on a lot of other games. That Bruins game, you're right. That 5-2 lead. They lost 6-5 in overtime. That Buffalo game, you're right. They had that 3-1 lead going into the third period. They lose 6-3. I almost forgot about that game. The Kraken game, yep. They gave up that late goal in regulation in Pittsburgh. 3-2 loss. You already touched on the Montreal game. Yep, the Carolina one. Brock McGinn actually scored in the third period for the Penguins to go up 2-1. They don't even get a point out of that game. Remember the Brian Russ goal, later on in December. They lost 4-3 with Jacob Slavin got the OT winner. Penguins scored with 7 minutes left in that third period. They couldn't even get 2 points there. I already said, yep, the Bruins game, the Winter Classic was annoying. Islanders games, yep. I mean, that's just, as you said, that's the tip of the iceberg. And I'm glad there were some other ones in there that I basically completely forgot about. Shouldn't even be in the situation. Poor defensive play, bad special teams, poor goaltending, bad situational awareness. If they had just played even average in third periods this season, this team would have clinched a playoff spot 2 weeks ago. And there's no reason to think that they can't make the playoffs next year, even if they miss this year, because the core is still playing well. And I think hopefully if there's a new GM in here, they'll be able to make the necessary moves to get this team back into being a playoff team next year. Again, outside of the top 6 teams in this conference, it's not that good. I mean, there's no reason why this should not be a playoff team. And the fact that, again, that's come down to this is very, very annoying. But yeah, I mean, just those games that I mentioned, ZC, I'm glad you brought up a couple other ones I basically completely forgot about. 15, 20 games right there, and had half of them gone the other way, they would have clinched a long time ago. It's just really, really unfortunate. But that'll wrap up this second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're getting into some injury updates and when you can expect Marcus Pettersson and potentially Nick Bonino to come back before the season is up. I know there's only 3 games left, but I'm going to give you all a couple small mini scoops when it comes to that to end the show. But before we discuss that, it's time to get into the official sports betting partner of Locked On, that is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet everything from the money line to point scores and three-strain. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 of bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and Locked On. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow this show's Twitter at NYC Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So, in terms of some small injury updates with Marcus Pettersson, Nick Menino, the segment might be a little bit shorter. Penguins do not practice today. They use it as a travel day. They are in Detroit right now, getting ready for tomorrow. Nick Menino and Marcus Pettersson continue to skate with the team, both in a non-contact capacity. I don't think they're going to play on Saturday, but I am thinking, based on what I've heard from a couple people, I think their target return date is Tuesday against the Blackhawks. If they can get a practice or two in on Sunday or Monday, if they practice both days, I think there's a good chance that both will be ready to play. Kulikov, I'm not really sure. I haven't really heard too much about that. I mean, all I've heard is he has a broken foot. He could come back in these final 3 games. He might not, but if I had to guess, I think the Penguins will get Pettersson and Benino back, which will be big. That the Penguins, knock on wood, will have a full complement of players for, one of the only times they've had it this season, because they're always pretty banged up. Pettersson, they've missed him a lot, even though they've gotten Petrie back, who's, he's been okay this year, not the best. And they just got Jan Ruda back, who I think did have a good game on Thursday against the Wild. This defense is not the same without Pettersson in there. He is their best defensive defenseman by far. You can easily make an argument that he's been their best defenseman all year. And, I'm one of the biggest Chris Letang Sims out there. Pettersson's been awesome. Thank God the Penguins didn't trade him. I'll say that. But that's what I'm hearing right now. Looks like that Tuesday game against the Blackhawks is their target date. Now, to end the show, obviously, the Penguins, they have to win out here. They have no other choice. And then you need one result to go your way. What's it going to be? Penguins fans are going to be the biggest Washington Capitals fans on tomorrow night and Monday. It's going to be hilarious. I don't know if they can rely on the Capitals to help them, because the Capitals look really checked out right now. I think they've given up on Peter Laviolette. They got blown to hell by Montreal on Thursday. It was really bad. I don't really know what was going on there, but let's see if the Caps want to help out. The Flyers play the Islanders. That would be funny if they help out the Penguins. Probably not going to happen. Penguins' best bet is probably going to be the Panthers getting beaten by either the Leafs or the Hurricanes, or potentially both in those games. The Capitals just don't have anything to play for. The Leafs don't have much to play for because they're locked in, but I also don't know how much cap space they even have to call anyone up from the Marlies. So I think they might have to dress their full lineup for that game against the Panthers. We'll see if they're even going to really try in that game. The Hurricanes, I think, will give it a fight, especially if the Metropolitan Division is still in the balance. They can kind of decide who they want to play. I think of all the 3 teams on the Panthers schedule, the Hurricanes are going to give them the biggest fight. Islanders-wise, they play the Flyers, Capitals, and then Canadians. I'll say this. I would be stunned if the Islanders dropped one of those games. They've been playing outside those 2 games last weekend. I think they've been playing a little bit better hockey. Sorokin is top 3 goalie in the league. I would be kind of stunned if they even dropped a point from those games. Penguins are going to have to win out and get some help. Even two out of 3 wins ain't going to do it. It's just not. Panthers, they have the harder schedule. Alex Lyon, can he continue to do this? That's going to be the big question. Be nice if Washington wants to help out, but I think it's more likely that one of Toronto or Carolina gives the Penguins some help. It's going to be close. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm leaning towards being more optimistic, because that's how I am, that the Penguins are going to somehow sneak in. But if they don't, and there's a good chance that they don't, again, they only have themselves to blame here, man. It's their fault. And yeah, there's big changes coming no matter what happens in the playoffs or if they miss. That's how I see it. And if the ownership can't see that, then I think this team is in even more crap than they already are. But that will do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Really appreciate all of you listening and watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Easter weekend if you all are celebrating. I'm, of course, a nice Jewish man, so I'm celebrating Passover, which, I'm already kicking myself for not being able to eat bread these last few days, or pasta, which is my favorite food. So I'm having fun with that. Hope you have a great rest of your Good Friday. Have a great Easter weekend. Let's see if the Penguins can win on Saturday and potentially get some much needed help from two teams that are out of the playoff picture right now. So until then, hope you all have a great weekend. I'll speak with you all on Monday, and we'll see if the Penguins are in a playoff spot.